What if I told you that the biggest problem with your screenwriting has nothing to do with writing mechanics, like having better dialogue or structuring your plot the right way, but it's actually something much simpler? In this video, I'll show you the biggest thing that holds back even the most famous screenwriters and how you can solve it right now. Then I'll give you the writing advice that instantly made me a better writer. Even the most successful writers in the world struggle with this problem. Let's start with something Dan Harmon talks about all the time. Say you go out to a bar and you see an attractive girl. You want to go and talk to her, only you don't know what to say. You know, you're so worried about whether or not she likes you that you freeze up, you know, and you ask your friends for advice and try to think of the cleverest thing possible. Is that even a word, cleverest? But you spend so long worrying about it that another guy goes up to her and you never even get the chance. When you're writing a screenplay, you're probably hoping that you're gonna sell it one day. With every word you type, you're already seeing it up on the big screen, you know? You hear the audience cheer and you practically see the whole movie play out in your head. The problem is, all of this puts way too much pressure on the quality of the screenplay, and you become so focused on making it good that just like when you want to talk to the girl, you don't say anything at all. When you're this hell-bent on perfection, it activates a very toxic radar in your brain, and suddenly every word you try to write, you start analyzing it. You know, you start thinking to yourself, well, this is no good. Oh, that doesn't work out. This is just awful. You're horrible. You're not creative. Just stop. Jump off a bridge. You're giving your brain way too subjective a lens to look through.
You're trying to prove that you're a good writer. That's what's blocking you.
I mean, what's the point of perfection if you can't even start? But if you can look at your work this way instead, you'll stop caring about how good it is. The other night, I was watching one of my favorite movies. You may have heard of it. It is one of the only movies on IMDb with a 9.0 rating. It grossed $1 billion in box office, and it's directed by one of the greatest directors of all time. It's called The Dark Knight. And I would have gone as far to say that this is an objectively good movie, but I got curious. I went to see how many people gave it 1 star. You wanna know what that number was? 40,000. All I'm thinking to myself is, what negative thing could 40,000 people possibly have to say about this movie that they would give it 1 star? Surely nothing very constructive, right? I have seen spaghetti westerns and children's cartoons with better acting than The Dark Knight, with the exception of The Joker by Ledger, who was decent. Okay, but surely no one would actually make any actual point. It's not often I find a movie plain unwatchable, but that was the case with The Dark Knight. The reason is plain and simple. Almost every dialogue feels fake, as only one person speaks per camera point. What's the point of me showing you these reviews? It's that no matter how many awards a movie wins, how much money it makes, or how popular it becomes, there will always be people out there who think it's bad. So if that's the case, does that make it true? If only one person thinks something is bad, are they inherently wrong? Or does the fact that more people believe something else make it true? The answer is that they're both wrong, and they're also both right. The idea of good or bad doesn't exist in art. If The Dark Knight can't even please everyone, you need to be okay with the fact that your screenplay probably won't please everyone either. This guy put together an entire list of everything that's wrong with it, for God's sake. Who puts that much effort into something like this unless they hate it with all of their might? And this has always been one of my biggest struggles with screenwriting. You know, I'd spend months. Once I even spent an entire year trying to perfect 1 draft, but it would just take me so long, and I'd never get to experience what it felt like to just finish. I had to reframe my perspective on what a first draft actually meant. It's a bit of a conundrum because although the first draft is the least important draft you write, it's also the most important. The first draft serves a major purpose as the baseline for your entire project. I mean, if you don't write a first draft, how are you ever gonna make a full-on movie? But at the same time, nobody's ever gonna read your first draft, ever. So it doesn't really matter what you write down. But if you can do this instead when you write your first draft, you'll be able to detach from your need for quality. You know, you'll stop questioning every creative thought that comes into your brain and just shooting them down left and right with judgment and negativity. You might spend hours thinking about the perfect idea. Then you finally get something down that you think is amazing, only to find that the first person you show it to hates it. Does that mean it's bad? Or does the fact that you spend hours thinking of an idea increase the quality? No. The truth is, you could spend weeks working on 10 pages and then another writer comes along and just churns out 10 pages in about 10 minutes and everyone likes his version better. So stop wasting time trying to make something good. Do this instead.
So you have to stop thinking about the thing that you're eventually going to be able to do, and you have to start thinking about the thing that you're terrified you will do, because that will go by very quickly. It's like cheating. It's like putting exhaust in your gas tank. It's like the thing your car makes that you can't use. You can fuel your car on it technically. Just write badly. I mean, it's not. You just, and specifically do that by saying, okay, I'm going to actually go there. I'm going to actually show myself what a piece of shit writer I really am, without thinking about any of it.
If you give yourself the complete opposite goal, now negativity is a good thing. Because now let's reverse the situation. What if you deliberately write the absolute worst piece of junk you can think of, but then the person you show it to, they love it? Does that mean it was actually good? Does it mean like they're stupid? No. It just shows that there's no empirical good or bad. Trying to be good, it just puts pointless pressure on you. But when you get to the end of your screenplay, writing this way, it's probably gonna be horrible, isn't it? I mean, you basically just wrote your stream of consciousness without a thought about structure, about dialogue, or any care for the reader's expectations. You can't send that in. Can you? This is gonna be your worst draft ever. There's a lot of names for it. You know, a vomit draft, a zero draft, just anything that implies how bad it actually is. But okay, why in the world would anyone want to write a screenplay that's deliberately horrible? You may not write well every day, but you can always edit a bad page. You can't edit a blank page. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. When you're starting from scratch, your inner critic is your worst enemy. He doesn't want you to write a single thing down. He stops you at every twist, every turn, and he doesn't want to see you succeed. I mean, just imagine. It's like having one of those critics on Rotten Tomatoes just hover over you every second you write. How annoying do you think that's gonna be? You'd never be able to finish. But if you can just ignore him for a while and finish that first draft, he becomes your best friend. His criticism might even become somewhat constructive. Like, rather than just saying, this sucks, don't write it, and leaving it at that, he'll say something more like, okay, this part is no good because of this thing here. You know, you should make this adjustment. And he actually starts helping you improve rather than just beating you down before you even get the words out. If you want some more constructive feedback on your writing, book a call with me for free by clicking this link below. This is where you allow your judgmental analysis to come in and tear your work to shreds. That's why I actually like the term vomit draft. It's like you just puked all over the page and now you need to come and clean it up, because it's the only way your writing will improve. The way I see it, you're better off having an entire screenplay that's absolutely horrible rather than having an amazing movie planned out in your head that you haven't even typed a single word for. This is the advice that brought my screenwriting to a whole new level. And if you follow this, you will become a better writer. It'll make it so that the mechanics of writing, whether it's plotting, structuring, you know, they start to become sort of embedded into your subconscious, so that not only is it easier for you to write freely, but your free writing will actually improve in quality. You might actually start to find that your first drafts need less and less editing. Like, don't get me wrong, they'll still be bad, just less bad. Last year, I went to Austin Film Festival, and you know, not to toot my own horn, but my screenplay did place in the contest. Throughout the conference, they had renowned screenwriters come up and talk about their own journeys. One of the speakers was Michael Arndt, the screenwriter for Little Miss Sunshine. He talked about how he wrote an entire screenplay in 3 days. In his own words, I wrote 12 pages the first day, 37 pages the second day, and pulling an all-nighter, 54 pages the third day. Then, I spent a year rewriting it. Now, these numbers alone, they blew me away, but this next part was what really did it for me. In the past, I'd usually just get the first draft polished to what I thought was as perfect as I could, and then I'd do maybe one rewrite, which was mainly just fixing up spelling errors and whatnot. You know how many rewrites Michael Arndt did for Little Miss Sunshine? 15. 15. I don't even know how I can tell you what an epiphany this was for me. I mean, I'd never even considered this idea. I was so used to sitting down and working on the same draft day after day, going back and fixing it as I wrote, and never getting to page 100 until pages 1 through 99 were as perfect as I thought they could be. And then that would be it. I'd put it away, submit it to a few contests, and I'd be done with it. This whole other world opened up to me. You can write more than one draft? What? How does that even work? And it all started to make sense. First off, I never realized that when many screenwriters do their rewriting, they start from scratch and they do it from memory. I'd never even considered this, but when I thought about it, the benefits actually made a lot of sense to me. Every time you rewrite, it gets more and more solidified into your brain. You start to see the movie clearer and clearer, and you know exactly what happens throughout the plot, who the characters are, and what the message is that you're trying to convey. John Swartzwelder, writer of 59 Simpsons episodes, describes it this way. It's like this crappy little elf has snuck into my office and badly done all my work for me. All I have to do from that point is fix it. You're basically two different people when you're writing and when you're rewriting. So just be okay with your first draft being potentially the worst thing you've ever written. Know that it's part of the process. Stop allowing fear to handicap you, because the only thing that causes fear is focusing too much on the future. And I want you to become conscious of these moments. When you're suffering from writer's block or not letting yourself get any words down on the page, wake up. Be cognizant of the words that are flowing through your head. Are you saying that your work isn't any good or that it doesn't make any sense? Your self-talk when you're writing is so important. Sure, you can try and force yourself through the entire draft, but what's the use in that? Why not just let words churn out of you with ease? When you're thinking this is bad, remember that you want it to be bad and then just write it anyway. Because it's not bad. It's not good. It just is. You can worry about fixing it later. This is something you especially want to get into the habit of if you're a beginner. You haven't really figured out your voice yet, so your goal right now is just to get as many words on the page as possible, to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, to start to know yourself as a writer. But how often are you actually even writing? Maybe you need to write, and when you do, you have no problem getting through the draft. Instead, you struggle finding motivation to write altogether. If you want some tough love advice to give you the push you need to get back to your screenplay, this is the video for you.